Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be working on my boxwoods. All my boxwoods are grown from nursery stock. This one was grown in the front garden for many years. It thickened up and kind of became a little more mature. The other one was bought at a grocery store for 99 cents. All the little trees in these plantings are all cuttings off of the main two trees. I also planted some cuttings off this tree in the ground outside. Let's go have a look at those. Over here is where I planted all the boxwood cuttings, and grass and that grew up around them and they disappeared until fall, and now you can see them once again. So I've got boxwoods here, over here, and all over here. So they're green and doing very well. So obviously they've rooted. So if I need more for my forest, I can dig these up. Boxwoods are quite slow growing trees. I planted this one in the ground in 1996. So that is 27 years ago. And you can see it's thickened up a lot. It was probably the size of this one when I started it. So it's thickened up a lot, but it hasn't gotten like massive or anything like any other tree would. Today I'm going to begin the work by weeding the planting. You can see there's all these weeds growing up. I've got liverwort over here, so I'll peel that all back. That way I can get a look at the root base on the trees. I'll use my tweezers and pull out all the weeds I can. Trying to get the roots and all. I'll be potting all these trees up into a forest planting this spring. So that should be really exciting. Lots of weeds in here. That's the trouble with trees in development. They always take a second or a back seat to trees that are going in shows or trees that are in videos. This tree hasn't been in a video since last spring where I dug them up and planted them. So it's kind of, it was left to grow, and not only did the trees grow, but also the weeds did too. So boxwoods are very hardy in the ground here. They can withstand any winter we get and survive quite nicely. It is a good idea to protect them from the wind if you can, because they will kind of dry out from the dry winter air can make the leaves go kind of brown. But in a pot, they're not so hardy. They would need some protection in the winter. Ideally, just above freezing is the perfect temperature to overwinter them, but they can take a bit of freezing too. Just don't let them go too cold or they'll die. Look at the roots on these weeds. Unbelievable. So I mentioned in the video where I first styled this tree that I wanted it to look like an old oak tree. Now, a lot of people style their boxwoods to look like oak trees because generally a boxwood doesn't really have like a natural form, a tree form. It's more of a shrub. So, to make it look like a miniature tree, you need to imitate the form of another tree. And then there's probably exceptions. I mean, I'm sure there's boxwoods in nature that do have a tree form and do look spectacular. I've never seen one, but I'm sure there's one or two that exist. So I'll keep cleaning away these weeds, and then we'll come back and have a look at the planting. And I'll do both pots. I've got 2 pots of boxwood, so I'll just work on weeding away. Lots of liverwort. Look at it all. Guess I should have dealt with that a little earlier. I have finished the weeding on my boxwood trees. It took quite a while. It took about 15 or 20 minutes. So now it's time to get to work pruning them up. While I was weeding, I noticed around the back of the main tree here that there's a root too high on the trunk that needs to be pruned off. You can see it here. Yeah. It's the only one of the root base that's, sticking way out. So that has to be removed. When you prune a root like this off, there is the chance that, you could get some dieback going up the trunk. But I can't keep it on. And if I do get some dieback, it will eventually heal. And it's on the back of the tree, so it's not quite so important. All right, so here I go, pruning that root off. Big cut coming up, just like that. And then I'll cut it away from the soil too. And when I do the repotting in spring, I can get rid of these roots out of the soil. Let me get the scissors, and I'll just snip away all these fine roots that are attached to it. So that root is now out. A nice subtle little cut. That should heal over really nicely. I've got that main root pruned off, and there is also another one. If you look here, there's a little nub of a root sticking out that I also have to clean up. So here I go. That'll be the next one, ready for cleanup. Just like that. So there's that little nub of a root. So that's looking pretty good, that root base now. You are looking at the back of the tree. Let me rotate it back around to the front. Now, I'm going to have a look at the tree just to see if there's a better front on it. This is a nice front. Has the main part of the trunk coming forward. A nice, branch out back. But I should check it over, just make sure there's no other view that I like better. So far, I'm not finding one. No, I like the current front view of the tree the best. I'm looking now at the structure of the tree. There's a few branches that died off here. I have my trunk line comes up. I have a branch off to the left-hand side, which is nice. The main trunk line comes up, and I have quite a few branches growing in this one place. I have these two branches are kind of parallel here. It kind of spoils the design a bit. However, this branch does come forward and fills in the front of the canopy. So again, you don't want those trees that from the front view or from the side view that they're flat in the front. You want some branches reaching forward. There is a big cut back here, so this trunk definitely hides that cut or helps hide it. So it's important to keep this branch on the tree. This one, it could come off because I've got branches from that other branch, the one here, that grow over top of it anyway. So I could take this branch off. You wouldn't see the scar from the front view, and it would clean that front view up a bit. I worry by taking that off that maybe the structure of the tree would look too plain and maybe, a little less natural. So I'm just having a look at the tree, trying to decide what to do there. This branch kind of comes from behind this trunk line too. It's kind of an awkward looking branch. It doesn't really flow the greatest. I think I better take it off. It stands out as a future problem that will only get worse with time. So I think I better take it out. It'll give this branch more light, this one here, and I can grow more out the front, kind of replacing this branch with this one. I think it'll occupy the same space and it'll look much better. Now, I'm going to do a rough cut. So I'll just prune it off here for now. There's the first step, and that would make a good cutting. And then I've got to get in there and reduce this branch back. So I'll do another cut here, whittling away at it. Now I'll have to come in on the angle here, if I can, and try and get it a little more flush. Okay, here I go. That's much better. Then I'll have to get my nibblers, get those in and nibble away a bit. Making this a flush cut. I think that is looking quite good. There's a branch back here. Do I need that? Probably not. I need to clean this cut up just a little more. I'll see if I can get at it. There we go. Okay, that looks good. I'll save all my cuttings, and any good cuttings I'll stick in the pot, see if they root and grow. That way I'll have more choices for the forest in the future. I'm looking at the tree now, and I like it even better without that branch there. I think it cleans up the structure quite nicely. Now, my next problem, I have a branch kind of crisscrossing here, a fine one. I'm going to remove that. So here I go. Like that. Now, if I come up the trunk here, I'll just take these dead branches off. I've got the main trunk line comes up and it divides into 3 here. 2 would be ideal. However, you know, 3 can work also. I would hate to prune off this one. I'd hate to prune off this one. The back one, or the middle one, well, I don't know. I guess, you know, this one is hidden kind of by this branch. That could work if I remove this one. I'd be dividing into 2. And then I have this branch out here that could fill in this space. So maybe that's the one to take off. This one here. You can see it's already thickening up in this section here with the 3 branches. So it doesn't look bad now, but it would become a problem in the future, I think, if I left 3 branches in that one spot. So I definitely don't want to remove the one coming out front. And I like this thick one up here. It's got a lot of nice sub-branching. And as I said, this one can be replaced with this branch in front. So I think if I take this one off, all will be well. So here I go. Okay, another big cut coming up. So I've got to prune it right back to the trunk line like that. Here I go. Big cut coming up. Just like that. There's the scar on the tree. Nice flush cut. I think I better nibble away at that cut a bit though. I don't want it to. Boxwoods, let's zoom down at this pruning scar down here. If you look at the pruning scar here, this was pruned flush and then it builds up a bit of a collar around it. So ideally you'd want the cut slightly concave so it heals a little more flush. So that's the reason I'm going to carve away that cut just a little bit more. All right, so here I go. That looks good. Here's an overall look at the tree now. I think my front view would have to be more rotated just slightly. So this branch doesn't look so vertical. It splays out a bit more if I rotate more around to that view. I think that'll look pretty good. Now I do have, this branch comes up and divides into two here, and it looks a little strange. I think I've got to shorten both of these branches back, get some horizontal growth going. So I'll do that. I'll prune up this branch next. I don't like these two branches kind of going parallel here. You know, I have a branch here, I could prune the one back to, so they spread out a little more. I'm going to remove the one from the inside here, like that, a little leaf here. Just cleaning this up a bit. So I've got a good branch spreading out here. And then I've got another one that kind of points in here. I think I want to take the apex back to this as a leader, as a branch leader. So I'll do that. I'll take the top of that branch off, keeping this as my apex. So I'm just coming in here and taking that off. Like that. Taking that off. I don't think I want this one on the inside here. I'll take that one out. There's a little more room between the branches. And then at the top here, I've got that branch here I like, my apex, which could also be shortened back. And I will take the tip off a bit, like that, and I'll shorten this back, like that. And then I've got a tall one coming up behind. I'll shorten that back and shorten the tips back on those two, like that. I can see in the future as this develops, I could cut that whole branch off here. I'll leave it on for now. I want, you know, sap flow going up here. I don't want this dying off. I think this other branch needs reducing too. So I'm going to take it right back to here. Ooh, that's hard. I better use my branch pruners. Boxwoods, fairly hard wood. Good for making boxes. So that's pruned back, and then I think everything's looking good in there. I'll just take the tip off here. You can see there's a bit of yellow fringing on the edges of the leaves here. That's a sign of variegation. Now, this isn't supposed to be a variegated tree, so I don't think that'll come into play, but I think everything else is okay on that branch except for that vertical one I'll take off here, like that. Now, off of the one beside it, I still have this shoot on the inside here. I don't want that one. I'm going to take it right out, like that. That kind of cleans up this branch quite a bit. Now, behind that branch, it divides into two here. You've got the one that comes forward, and then a more vertical one. I'm going to prune some of these vertical shoots off so they're a little shorter, but not too short. I think to take that off. So I'm going to cut this one back, shortening that. Got 3 branches growing here. I'm going to take this one out and shorten these ones back, like that. I think that's got, you know, this whole branch here shortened a bit. It's looking quite nice. I do have these two branches kind of run parallel. I think I'm going to take this part of it out, like that. Give those a little more space. And then I wonder if I even need this one coming forward. It's kind of growing over top of the other branch. I mean, ideally, I would get rid of the thicker branch and develop this as my apex so I have taper. But I'm wondering if that's too drastic a cut. Maybe it's not. The problem with that is that it fixes the taper in this branch, but then this one is very heavy going all the way up to here. So, you know, your eye would go up to this branch or this trunk line. So I want to keep these kind of fairly equal. I don't want one big thick trunk here and a really skinny one here. So I think I'd better keep this front branch, at least for now anyway. Now after you do this reduction, you've got to let these grow in spring and recover. Otherwise the tree will get weak and die. So you've got to let, you know, after drastic reduction on a box, you've got to let it recover and grow and get healthy again. You can't just keep picking away at it or it'll just weaken. So, like that. That kind of gets this one pruned up. Now you can see there's a stub here. I should prune that back a little more flush. So I will do that. I think I was being conservative the first time because I didn't want to lose this whole branch by cutting too flush of a cut. Now it's kind of rerouted the vascular tissue, and here I go. Big cut coming up. Almost all the way through. Get my scissors in there. Like that. So that is a much nicer cut now. That shall heal quite flush in many, many years to come. It will take a long time. Now, I want to deal with this branch out front now. This branch out front, if this is my front view, it's kind of blocking everything. So I want to get that pruned back. So I don't want the one branch crossing here. It's also dividing into 3 there. Take off this one on the top. Take this one off. A dead one here. There's all kinds of little bugs climbing on my trunk here. I don't know what they are. And then out front, it's a little long. Like it sticks out of the profile of the tree. So I'll prune it back to here. Here. Back to here. Take the vertical branch off, this vertical branch off. Don't know about that one. I'll leave it. I might want to shorten it someday. And then it's just too long out front here. So I've got to prune it back. I've got some branching way back here, so I'll prune it back to here. Like that. The top one, prune this back to here. So back to here. And this one back to here. So that gets that shorter. Don't like this one sticking up here. I'll get rid of that. Not sure I like this one either. Get rid of that one. And this one. I'll just reduce this one back to there. Okay, so that's got that front branch pruned up a bit. Looks better. Now off of here, I've got this branch coming forward. I've got a little branch developing here I don't want. This one, that one kind of died off, but there's a new shoot below it that's alive, so I'll prune the dead bit off. Try to. There. I'm looking, you know, my overall height of the tree is about here, and I've got this long one growing up here. And I do have a division here, so I could prune this whole long bit off, and I think I will. Like that. It'll shorten the overall height of my tree, which is kind of important to get it to look more compact. I may even reduce this branch back. I think I should. I'm going to leave a stub on this one. So that's pruned back. That looks better. Everything's good on here. I'll just prune it back. There's one kind of going in a strange direction here. I'll take that out. Prune this one back. I've got some growth here, some that's growing in towards the center of the tree. I'll remove. Cut this one back. Cut this one back. And I'll take the top off that branch. The branch tip is kind of dead on it, so I'll need to bring it back. Like that. Then behind the tree here, I have a lot of growth. I don't want that either because I'm dividing my trunk into two here and I don't want all these new suckers growing up there, so they'll all come off. So here I go. And that should clean up the tree, especially in the front view. So I think most of my pruning is done on this tree. I'll just prune a few of these shoots back, getting it a little more compact, a little more subdividing on the tree. Let's have a look at it in the front view now, see how it looks. Here is a look at the tree now from the front view. So I solved a lot of structural problems today with this tree, and I think it looks like a nice flowing upright structure. Something to build on in the future. I'm hoping, this tree was really healthy over the summer. It had lots of foliage on it. I pruned it back now, so I'm hoping in spring I get a lot of back budding all over these branches and the tree really takes off in health. So I've got all the other trees to prune up now. I've got all these little forest trees. My goal is to make them look like miniature versions of the large tree here. So they'll look like, smaller, similar trees in the distance. And I've got all kinds of different sizes, so it'll be very interesting when I plant the forest, arranging them all to come up with a kind of a pleasing composition. Now this tree isn't grown in the forest style. You can see it has quite a wide spreading canopy. A forest tree is very upright and has a sparse canopy on top. So I'll have to spread the trees out so each tree has its space of sunlight and each tree can have a little canopy up top or a fairly big canopy. So it'll be an interesting composition to create a forest. I'll definitely have to spread the trees out, and I may not use all the trees I have here. It may be a composition of maybe 5 trees in the end. We'll see. We'll see when it comes to planting time. I'm going to prune up all the rest of the trees in the forest now. I won't show you that part because it'll take way too long, but I'll try and get a tree-like form to each of the little cuttings. I have got all the trees pruned up except the one over here, which is like a multi-trunk tree. You can see it comes up and it divides into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 at the base down here, which isn't very good. So I've got to do some big cuts on that. So let's do that next. The other trees in the planting aren't, all that exciting. I just kind of prune them up, leaving branches on, pruning back the long shoots. Nothing too dramatic on those. They're just kind of, most of these little cuttings I didn't even touch because they're just, sticks and pots at the moment. All right, here is the tree. So I guess I need to pick a trunk line. I can have it a twin trunk, I can have a triple trunk, I could even leave it as a clump style, but I don't think that would match any of the other trees in the forest. And again, my intention is to train them to look like oak trees. And you don't see too many oak trees with, 5 trunks coming off at the base. At least I haven't. I'm sure they exist though. So let's do some pruning here. There is a vertical trunk line going up the middle. It isn't the thickest one. The thickest one is out the back, but it's on quite an angle. So I'm leaning towards the vertical one up the middle, just to make a straight trunk on the tree. So I'm going to cut this back and I'm going to leave stubs, and then I'll prune the stubs back maybe later, once they've kind of died back and the center trunk is still alive. So here I go. I'm going to prune this one off here, like that. The next one will be this one here, right here. The next one will be the one over here. So this was a 99-cent tree from the supermarket. And the big one off the back, like that. So now you can see I have my oak tree growing up the middle. These all get pruned back flush. And, you know, we've got a good example of taper here. We have a thick base going to thinner and thinner. So I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to prune off this thick branch here, like that. I'm going to prune back this one. I'm going to prune back this one. And the top, I have it dividing into two, which I guess is all right. I'll leave it. I'll leave the strength in the top. I think that's about it. You'll notice there's one back here that is turned kind of a rusty color. I think it's still alive. It has buds on it, and it hasn't gone crispy. You know, some of these lower leaves are a bit crispy, but so I think it's still alive. There must be some roots growing. I'm going to leave it, see what happens with that tree. If it dies, well, it dies. Okay, well, I think that's it for the boxes today. Let's have a final look at them. Here's a look at the box trees, all pruned up, ready to go for spring, where they'll become a forest, and that will be exciting. So it'll be interesting to see what the roots are like on them. I'm sure there'll be some root correction, but I can't do a whole lot of root correction because I want the top to grow. So I'll do what I can to keep the tree nice and healthy and strong. Boxes generally have good root systems. It's the one tree you can plant in your front garden, leave it for many, many years, and not worry about the roots getting too thick and out of control. They tend to grow a nice radial root system and a fine radial root system. So, you know, generally you can plant them in the ground, kind of forget about them for many years, dig them up, and they'll have, 9 times out of 10, they'll have a pretty good looking root system on the trees. Here is the final look at all the cuttings I have. There's the orange cat out there. Yeah, so those are all the cuttings I have. There's a lot of good ones, really good woody ones. My problem is I don't know if I need more for this forest. I've got, let me see how many I have. I've got the one tree, 1, 2, 3, 4 in this pot. In this pot I got 5, 6, and then a bunch of small ones. So I'm thinking, you know, a 5-tree planting, so I probably have enough cuttings. However, you know, accidents do happen. Maybe some will die off, so maybe it's a good idea to plant these. I guess it wouldn't hurt. Maybe I could plant them in this pot here. So I'll just trim off the lower leaves, stick them in the pot as cuttings, and that'll be that. I'll prune up my cuttings. I'm just taking a bit off the tops of them, and I'll stick them in the soil. Nice and deep, right down to the bottom of the tray. So all my cuttings are out front in the planting, so I'll have to remember that when I go to repot it, that these will all be fresh. May not have any roots at all, you know, at the time I repot them, so they may go in a separate pot to grow as cuttings. I've got one last bit of work to do on the main tree here, and it's this branch here. It's a bit too horizontal. I'm going to use some raffia and just tie it up a little higher like that, so it matches all the other branches reaching up. My fingers are a little cold out here. I've got to... How's that look? That looks good. I like that. So I'll cut my raffia off. Cut this end off. And there I go. That branch is tied up. There's a look at that branch now. You can see how it matches the angle of all the other trees. Looks much, much better. I was quite happy with the outcome of the boxwoods today. I expected to do more pruning on the little trees, but they're kind of in development, so I didn't take a whole lot. I mean, they don't really have good looking trunk lines or anything at this point in time, so they will be a work in progress. They'll kind of be the background trees to the main tree, which I hope this spring will develop quite nicely, back budding and filling out a little more. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.